Hey, what's up? Welcome back to the Cash PT Lunch Hour podcast. I'm your host again, Aaron LeBauer. I mean, who would have thought? But today, my special guest is Joseph Ngugi, and I want to bring Joseph on the show because he's crushing it. He's doing what most people really want to be able to do, and Joseph is doing it. I've known Joseph for quite a few years. He's helping pre-PTs get into PT school so they can be just like us. So welcome, Joseph, to the show. I really appreciate
Thank you
being
very
here.
much. Appreciate you. Appreciate you. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I had your business partner, Casey, on the show a few months ago, and I was like, I knew you were having a baby. So I was like, I got to wait till after baby comes around to get some attention from Joseph. So that's awesome, man. So tell me, or tell us, what is it you're doing right now? Who are you helping? What are you guys helping people do?
Oh yeah. So I'm a physical therapist, but right now our aim is to help students get into PT school.
Mm-hmm.
It's something we've been doing for a while. We used to do it in person since 2014, and then online since 2017. But right now we coach students. We just kind of take them through the whole process, and it's really students that feel like their stories impossible, I guess, is a good way to say it. Students that have low GPAs and or students who have been rejected multiple times and feel like they love physical therapy and this is how they want to serve people, but they just have run out of options and they've been told basically to pick something else. So those are the students we help get into PT school because it's not impossible. It's just that most people don't know how.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Why'd you guys start this? Especially if y'all haven't listened to Casey's episode, go to listen to it. But I mean, Joseph, you probably have a little bit different, version of this. Where did this come from? Because I think you kind of did it first, and then Casey was a year behind you, right?
Yeah. So basically, what happened? Long story short, is my sophomore year as a pre-PT, like my sophomore year in college. 5 of my friends were basically around the same time told by our advisor to not pursue PT anymore. Which I later realized is a very common. And the reason was the fact that their GPAs were a little lower, but this is their sophomore year, which now looking back, I'm just like, what? So like they had time. They hadn't even graduated yet. And but basically the advisor kind of looked into the future and just assumed that they would never be qualified. And an advisor who had never been to PT school basically told them they shouldn't do it.
Right.
And so they switched their career path. I knew their reasons for getting into the profession. And I was on that path as well. And so it was just really out of frustration. So I was like, so I basically looked at what I was doing differently because I was still going down that path. And the biggest difference I had made was that I was actually just listening to other students that had already gotten there. So I had a few friends that had just gotten into PT school. I had a few friends that were applying. And so basically what I did was I was like, how did you guys get through it? Like, how did you guys handle retakes? How did you handle this, that, and the other? And so decided to just create the same thing. I decided to create a coaching community on our campus in 2014 and basically do that for other students so that they wouldn't have to feel stuck. And over time, though, we started realizing that was actually helping students get in to PT school. And so 2017, I was getting ready to graduate from PT school, and Casey, who had been one of the coaches in that program, back when we did it in person, basically joined the team. And in 2017, we decided to partner up and take it online because I wasn't going to be there anymore. I was moving. I was going to be a PT within a few months. And so we decided to take it online, and it has been a beast. Like,
that's
we
awesome.
did not anticipate that it would be what it is now, but basically we're doing that for quite a few students.
Hell yeah, man. So let me go back before I highlight a couple things so people understand. Like, one, you had a problem and you solved it. Right. So were you told, like, don't apply to PT school, your grades aren't good enough? Or was it just the people around you being told that?
I was never told that, but I also didn't ask that question. So I just never, it really wasn't an option for me to not become a physical therapist, which is not the norm for most. But they had asked, they were struggling and they were just kind of like, where do you see me? And they were told that they would not have a good shot, so they should just quit and find something else.
I mean,
it's the truth.
Did you have like 3.0 GPA in college?
My GPA wasn't the lowest, but but I really do think it's just the fact that I just never, I never believed that, even with the classes that I struggled with, like chemistry and physics and all that stuff, I just never believed that there was like an end of the line. If my grades are bad, that's it. I just always felt like there was another way. Like
Why not?
uh, I don't know what it was. I think it's probably just from the people I surrounded myself with, but
Mm-hmm.
I just felt like if I was failing in a class, there was always a way to navigate that, whether
Mm-hmm.
that was retaking it, whether that was me not leveraging the people around me, whether it was me not building the relationships with professors that I needed to. And I've just always had, I don't know where that comes from, but I've always just had this belief that there's always a solution.
Right.
There's always some way. It might not be the solution you want in the moment. It might not be fun because it's always going to be hard work, but there's always a solution. And I think I've just carried that, and that's what kind of kept me afloat. But I realized that a lot of people do not have that.
Mm-hmm.
And so they really needed someone to kind of tell them, hey, this is how to do it. Let's find some solutions. Let's find people to help you find the solutions because they found them for themselves.
Yeah. Wouldn't you agree? Like if you really want something, you'll do whatever it takes to get it.
Every time.
Yeah.
Every time. Yep.
So do you see a lot of people who don't really want it and they just take no as the like word and answer and they just quit?
Oh yeah. Like you have to want it enough. That's one of the first things, even with patients, like patients, physical therapists, students. That's the first thing I asked them is I was like, why in the world do you want this? Like
Mm-hmm.
then the question I always ask afterwards is I was like, okay, what would your backup plan be? Like I always want to know, like, are they just kind of doing this just because they were told, because they saw it on some list, on Google? Right. And then I say, what would your backup plan be? And what I'm always looking for is I'm looking for how serious they are about whatever this goal is, because there's multiple ways to do things, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can succeed in different ways. You can succeed, as a clinician, as a business owner, as a whatever. But how badly do you want this? Because when things get difficult, when we have to take some detours, are you going to be locked in enough on what you want to be willing to go through that? And so,
right.
So yeah, a lot of people just quit too early. I don't think.
What is the most common answer to that question? Like, what's your backup? What's your backup plan?
PTA.
Mm-hmm.
PTA is the most common one, and then after that, it's be a trainer.
Yeah.
So they want to stay within the same profession, but there's this assumption that PTA is going to be easier and then trainer is going to be easier than that, which those are all tough in different ways, if that's not your passion,
right.
And so
does anyone come on and be like, oh, the other option is to go do something completely outside of the profession or realm?
Right? I haven't seen that. Typically with someone that is thinking something way outside the box, they have tried it, it's usually reversed. It's usually students that are non-traditional that have gone down a completely different path and are like, oh, now I want to be a physical therapist.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I had some classmates in PT school that were over the cadaver lab. I'm like, isn't that like, because I was a massage therapist before, if people listening don't remember that. And I'm like, oh, look, the pterygoid muscle. Oh, that's so exciting. Like, oh, and they're like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, well, in a different conversation, I was like, well, why are you here? They're like, well, I mean, I had an exercise sports science degree. I mean, what else was I supposed to do? I'm like, anything you want.
Yep, anything. I don't think people realize that they could. Options are endless, but anyway.
Yeah, like I had a history degree, and
wow.
I mean, I was just told. I went to the pre-med meeting and was told 95% of you won't be here next year. Like, well, not in school, but in pre-med.
Really?
And she was right. I wasn't there, but I hated that. I was like, why do you gotta be? Like, my reason for not being there was because I didn't want to spend 4 hours a day doing organic chemistry. And I wanted to have a life.
That's fair.
Right. So why are you so passionate about this? Like why did you become a PT, and how do you know, or why did you know that like you were going to do whatever it takes to be a PT?
So why I became a PT and why I'm so passionate about this, it's two different reasons. So why I decided to become a PT was basically my whole life. So I was born in Kenya. And so my whole life, my options have always been whether my parents intended for this. I don't know if this is like a immigrant thing, but my options were always doctor, lawyer, engineer. I later found out there was a lot of people that were told the same things.
Yeah.
And so I just felt like I always had this predetermined path. And I just never felt called to any of them, but I just felt like, well, I guess this is what successful business, professionals look like,
Mm-hmm.
right? They have to be a physician, a lawyer, or an engineer. And in high school, I actually had an interaction with one PT by accident. And basically what my response was, she gets paid to do that? Like, it was just a reflection of all the things I loved. I
Mm-hmm.
loved interacting with human beings, like spending time with people. I loved solving problems. It's just how my brain works. I love movement. I love just everything she said. I was like, that's what I would do for fun. But I
Right.
just didn't understand that that was actually a profession. That was my first introduction to it. So once I realized that there was something that allowed me to be myself and allowed me to really, really serve people in that way, I was glued. I did my research, I shadowed and all that stuff just to make sure, but I was glued. So from there, I've never really turned. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I've just been locked. I was like, there's nothing else out there that just matches, my personality. So for me now, my reason for what I do today is really because I just believe that there's other people out there, regardless of what their reason is,
Mm-hmm.
that feel that strongly about becoming physical therapists.
Yeah.
And if I feel that strongly about becoming a PT, and then someone has the audacity to come down the line and tell me that my dream is impossible, and they're not even willing to show me some route, like they're just like, no, just do something else.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm having to live out my career doing something that someone else suggested for me, but it's my career. Like, I'm the one that's having to go in, clock in, do whatever I need to do. But if it's not lined up with the way I want to serve people and in a way that actually pumps me up, because I mean, Aaron, you already know, like, when we enjoy what we're doing, when we enjoy who we're serving, we give at such a high level, right? Like, the quality of care that we provide, whether it's virtual or in person, is so amazing. But if you don't have that, then you'll just kind of clock in, clock out. And I just feel like that's a disservice to you as a professional, and it's a disservice to whoever is served by you if you don't have that. So that's my reasoning for getting into the profession, but why I do what I do and why I'm so pumped about what I do, because my job is to, like, every single day try to figure out if there's someone else that I can help basically keep that dream alive by not just pumping them up with hype, but more so saying, hey, there's a way. Let's figure it out. Let's trust it. Let's do the work, and then let's see what happens.
Oh man, that's so awesome. That's powerful. So, I mean, one thing I want to point out to people listening is that you and Casey were making money in the physical therapy profession while you're in PT school.
Yes, sir.
Even in almost an undergrad, but I mean, were you still undergrads at the point where you monetized this, or was it just PT school?
We were in PT school when we started monetizing.
So everyone's like, one, when you're in PT school, you shouldn't have another job, and two, it's impossible for PT students to like help anyone and make any money, and you really need 5 years of experience to do anything. And you're only a few years out of PT school, right?
Yeah, I'm currently 3 years out.
3 years out.
Yeah.
And you're crushing it. But you guys had this business set up in PT school to help other people.
Yes,
like,
sir.
One, like, I think that's amazing. Two, I'm sure everyone told you it was a horrible idea. And three, I know you put yourself around people that supported you.
Yeah.
So, but so many people don't know that those possibilities exist.
Yeah.
Right. So how did you go about figuring it out or finding the right people to help you basically accomplish what you guys are doing? I mean, was it only like, did you only do it by yourself? Were you guys just like, hey, we're just going to sit in the library and figure this out and read, 100-year-old books and figure out how to run a business and help people? Or like, what did you do? And what was the first step when you realized you needed, you needed something more to help you move as fast?
Oh my, yeah. First thing is, if you ever want to do anything fast, leverage the experiences of someone else that's already done it. That's a no-brainer. Like, if it's a coach, if it's a friend who's done it, a mentor, whoever, because if I hadn't, and I'll tell you how we did it, but if I hadn't, where we are today would have taken so much. To be honest, I don't think we would have gotten this far ever, because we would have given up, right? Because there's so many other things that we needed someone that had gone through it to help us understand. No, this is not bad. This is actually like just teaching you something. So use it this way, and now it's obviously worked out on the back end. But Casey actually was being coached by Greg Todd, and so he was kind of coaching people with just teaching them how to put themselves online and how to add value to themselves as, future physical therapists or current physical therapists. And he became my coach as well. And basically we just listened to him. We were introduced to you as well. We were introduced to a few other people in the profession that were just doing it. And that's all we needed. We needed people that we were able to watch from afar. So like, I remember the first time I messaged you, because I was like, whoa, this guy's like, I was absorbing all your content. I was absorbing, Greg's content and several other people. And it was just this idea that these are people that are physical therapists. You blew my mind because you were basically went to PT school and then did not work for anyone as a physical therapist, right? And so I was like, that's even possible. So you just all broke so many barriers for us, mental barriers for us. And all we did was just kind of follow the path. And when we felt stuck, we were just like, okay, who can help me with this? And if Greg could, if whoever could, that's how we did it. But it's I guess one way to think about it is it just shortens up the timeline of what it would have taken to figure out business. Because I always thought you needed like a business degree or whatever else, and you really don't.
Right.
I think business is about people. It's understanding how people think. It's understanding how to solve problems. It's understanding how to be, how to use your resiliency and creativity and, just your humanness to put yourself out there and show people that you can help them, and then show them how, bring them into your world, serve them, obviously for money, and it's a business, and doing that over and over and over again. You get better. You're able to serve a lot more people, and it's a win-win.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. Like, that's so true. I mean, I think that, it's just one of those things where I'm just like, fuck yeah, like, congrats. I mean, I know there are people out there that are doing it, and it's not easy. And for everything that I heard people tell me, like, I know other people are hearing it too, because I'm not the only one. And it's so awesome and refreshing to see more and more people these days, and more DPT students and new grads, like, start businesses and start helping other people, because we have a ton of knowledge and gifts. We just have to actually be empowered to use those, right? What's
100%.
what's the number one thing, like, with the students you're helping through the through pre-PT grind, what's the number one, like, problem or misconception that they have? And
that their past failures, whether it's low GPA or being rejected before, are a predictor of what will happen in the future. It's really that simple. So if they feel like they've had too low of a GPA, lower than what they're told is the norm, lower than a 3.0, if they've been rejected before, if they struggle with things like the GRE and all that stuff, they just kind of take that on as their identity. And they're like, well, this is just kind of who I am. This just means that I'll never be qualified to do blank. I'll never be qualified to get into a PT program. And that's the first thing we have to knock out of the park and just say, like, that's not true. Does it, like, are we going to be passive about it and just kind of sit here? And no, like, there's work to be done. I mean, anytime there's a problem, there's work to be done. But it's showing them that that's not the truth at all. And I have stories of students we've coached, like students that have had 2.4 GPAs when they started working with us, students that have been rejected 4 years in a row. Like all the things that people thought were like not possible. It's just using that and saying, there's a path. Let's figure it out together. But don't hold yourself back.
What's the, like, lowest GPA or score? I mean, what that you guys help people get into school with?
2.4 is the one that comes to mind.
What is that? Is that like a C? I mean, is 2.4 equal like a C? I mean, how does that work these days?
2.4 is, it's like a C or below. So let me clarify. So that 2.4 was where the student started, right? Okay. So obviously, the GPA that you can change the most is your prerequisite GPA, because it's a few different classes. And so if someone starts there, feels like they're stuck there, they may need to retake some classes, and we teach them how to actually retake those classes and crush them, because part of it was the fact they didn't even know how to study. Right. They didn't know how to deal with all of that stuff. But by the time they apply, they've controlled everything that they could possibly control. They've applied to schools that would be a match for them, because not every school needs you to have a 3.7 GPA, right? So which school is a match for you? How do we leverage those things? How do we use relationships with the pro? Like there's so many other layers, but yeah, 2.4.
Yeah, I had for full disclosure, I've shared this on your podcast when I was a guest, but I only got 1 point more right on the GRE than I needed. Like it was like you need 1,000, and I don't know what scale they're on now, but 10 years ago or 12 it was 13 years ago when I applied, it was like you need 1,000 on the GRE and a 3.0 in your prerequisites. And I was like, oh, good, I'm good at math and science. So I got the 3.0 and I got the 1,010 on the GRE, and I went to Elon. It was a newer program. It was on rolling admissions at the time. And I like barely squeaked in. And they all told me, everyone was like, you have to have a 3.0 or more on your prerequisites, and they have to be taken in the last 10 years. And I was 12 years out of out of undergrad. And I called and I was like, is this true? Like, you're going to make me go back to school for 2 years? They're like, no, just apply. But, it wasn't like that easy. Are you guys also helping like people with second careers, get into PT school and do that kind of stuff? Or
I'd say about 40% of our students that we coach are in their second career. We have students that have been 7 years out when they started like taking even prerequisite classes, because they were like in a completely different career, right? Students that have been 10 years out, students in their early to mid 30s, 40s, that are just trying to transition into physical therapy. And those hurdles are still there. Expired prerequisites or whatever they call them. But yeah, that is all there.
Yeah. I'm like, well, just because I took biology in 1996, 95 doesn't mean like, I don't know what like carbon or like dirt looks like, or an amoeba. Like, does that really matter?
Exactly.
What is like, so now that you guys have been doing this for long enough, you've got people graduating PT school probably already in the last few years, right?
So for the people that we coached in person on my campus, yes, they're all PTs. But the people that from our online business, they're about to graduate. Our first group of clients in that program are about to, get their doctorate degree. So it's a pretty surreal moment.
That's awesome. That's awesome, man. Do you guys have anything like in place for them? Like, or is it like you help you get into school and then like that's it? Or are you guys helping people through school? Do you guys have like other kind of parts of your program that you're, like you help people get into school? Is that it? Or is it, now that they're graduating or getting into school, is it kind of the same? Like, I don't know, like, I don't even know what else you guys are doing beyond that part.
Good question. So, twofold. So we've like developed some partnerships with other people that help with the different parts of the journey through PT school and after PT school. So we don't do all of it because, we've pretty much specialized in PT school acceptance, and just because that's our niche right now. But we've just done a good job of just partnering up with people and saying, okay, once you're done here, this is your next step, because we don't want our students to feel like, okay, now what, so they have guidance all the way through. But one thing that we have really also used a lot is we coach people on like the financial aspect of it as well. Because a big problem for people is school debt. Schools are too expensive. If you're asking me, I think they're way too expensive. It's nonsensical. But how to deal with that? How to deal with making more money while you're in school? So we have students that have cut off $60,000 of what they would have initially paid for school because of what we've taught them. So we have that aspect to help them financially get through school. But in regards to like the academic portion of it, we've partnered up with people that can help them get guidance all the way through.
So you guys have your specialty, and then when you're like, okay, you're past this specialty, we're just going to send you to the next person.
Exactly.
Right. It's kind of like, that's our job as PTs. Like, I can help you with your musculoskeletal injury, but as soon as you need surgery, you're going here. But if you really need nutrition, I'll probably send you to the, dietitian or partner with someone who does those pieces.
Exactly. Yep.
That's awesome. So what are the, I got one or two more questions, just kind of like about how you guys run the program. Is the thing that people struggle with the most, is it the test, not just the scores, but the test taking and studying strategies that maybe they didn't learn? Or is there something else that's unique to our profession that, that people need in order to get the right scores and get in and then thrive as a physical therapist?
I think it's two things. So the know-how, yes, I mean that's common, but I think a lot of it is just the belief and accountability. That's what people really struggle with, because one thing I always tell people is don't be an information junkie. And what I mean when I tell them that is, you know, we got so many students that like are in different forums and they're following us, they're following other schools, they're following all they're doing is getting all of this information, and all it does is just make them more anxious because they're doing nothing with it, right? And when you have information overload and you do nothing with it, you're not going to get anywhere. And so so I tell them, do not be an information junkie. Figure out what you need to do, and then if you don't feel like you have the environment to do it, then find that environment. If it's us, great. If it's not, that's fine. Just make sure you have people that can hold you accountable, that can make sure that you're doing the things. And so that's really what I see it being. Like, you know, it's the know-how and then the accountability. And that's why we structure our program the way we do, because it's really it's like patience, right? We could tell them, we could teach them, right? But if we don't hold them accountable, then they're not going to be able to stay long enough to even realize that you're saving them from having to have surgery. You're saving them from having to, be a victim, like hang on to their medications for the rest of their lives, right? Like they won't realize it if we don't hold them accountable. So I think it's the same things at every stage. Whenever it's like a human problem, right? Like as human beings, we need to know how. We want to know that there's a path. We want to know how that path works, but we also need a system that allows us to actually like do the thing. And for many people, it's just accountability.
That's awesome. So I want to share, I would love to ask you some questions and have you share kind of like how you set this up. Because a lot of people listening are like, well, how do I, set up like an online business, one that allows you to move? You're not really even treating patients at this point, it's like, so how do we do that? So where did you guys start? Can you just give me a little overview? Did you start with like a course? You kind of have like a mentorship or coaching piece? Like, can you just kind of share like, how did it start? Is anything changed? And what are the couple like pieces of your value ladder that you have that, are working, and how you're moving people through this process?
Great question. We started, so obviously after we became a business, because you got to legalize everything, right? But we started by first of all creating a Facebook group. That was how we started. Just kind of find one thing that you can use to bring in people and serve them. Start a Facebook group and a podcast. That's all we did. So basically, it was just research. Like we really did it for research. Like I think a lot of people thought we were just there to. No, I asked so many questions. I was just trying to figure out like what were they really struggling with? They're not with me in person. In person I can always ask you all the questions I need, but it was more so research to figure out where were people really stuck. And so once we did that, we transitioned into a course. At that time, it was called the Pre-PT Success Program, I think is what we called it. So it started into a course, and we used that course to basically take people on a path from basically not knowing anything to being in a position where they felt like they had some sense of control over what they could do, right? And also a community to help them go through it. And so over time, though, that has grown. That little course is now a coaching program with over 300 people in it right now. It's the investment's even changed, so what people pay for it is 10x what it originally costed. But basically now we coach them through group settings. They have individual coaches that they're matched up with. Our biggest things right now is to give them clarity first, because we believe that to get accepted into PT school, there's really three things that most people struggle with. It's clarity, not knowing where they're at and what they need to do, what their game plan is going to be. Confidence being from actually knowing the pieces, right? Like when I do this, how does this work? Like that gives you confidence. Like if I, like as a business owner, if I know what I'm doing, right? If I know that what I'm going to communicate is going to help you, or if I, like I have more confidence in communicating it. So building real, genuine acceptance, confidence, and then controlling the things that they can control, and teaching them how to control their application and also their career. So that's what we take them through now. But that's our top program, and it's but in between there we have our value ladder starts from cheat sheets that we have, for free. We have a virtual observation hours program that we built this year because of COVID-19. So a lot of students were not able to, go shadow PTs in person. So basically, we have them shadow us and we give them hours. Right now, we have 1,700 people in that program.
Nice.
That's for free, right? So, but then what's happening is you're giving them a level of value that they don't get anywhere else. And so now they're able to go to the next stage. And their next stage is we have a free series that we give them called the Acceptance Navigator series. Once they finish that, then if they feel like they're ready to take control of their acceptance, we actually schedule a call, like have them schedule like a consultation call. Let's help you figure out where you're at. And then if they're a match to work with us, they go into our top level program, or they go into one of our other services that's better match for them. But in a basic structure, that's our business model. That's how we've been able to really serve a lot of people, but really bring them in, because you always have to have a flow of clients, but you also have to give them a lot of what they want and what they really haven't seen anywhere else. And so, I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. And you guys you have other coaches working with students, right?
You got it. Yep.
And are they paid coaches? Or are they doing this as like free? And how's that?
We pay our coaches.
Yeah. That's awesome. So you've leveraged your time.
Yeah, a lot of it. Really, what my time is spent on now is creating. So creating content, or ideas for content, because we have a team right now that takes care of all the other stuff. It's spent on selling. So finding ways to actually market and sell, because I just feel like as the business owners right now, for myself and Casey, that's our job. Our job is to bring more people into our world and then bring them through the system. Like, I don't really want to be on the back end of it right now, because I feel like it'll take away from us getting more people into our world. So, having coaches buys back a lot of time.
Yeah, that's powerful. So how'd you figure that part out? That's what I want to know. Like, everyone, like, I know people on here, like, he's not even 30, right? You're like 28 or something. What
26.
26, right?
Yeah. Yep.
He's at home with his newborn baby, business is running, helping people. Like, I've been doing this, like how do, like, I mean, I know how, but I want to know, like, how'd you figure this part out? And how'd you come to the realization that this is something you could do to get more time, more money, more income?
Man, part of it's just, belief is created by watching other people. So having seen other people that did similar things just gave me the belief that it was feasible. The fact that I could sit here literally exactly where I'm sitting as we record this, do a training, and in 3 hours make between $70,000 to $100,000. Like that stuff was only possible because of watching other people do it. And so once I saw that someone else could do that, I'm like, why not? And it's also understanding that, obviously the more people you help, like, it's okay to get a lot of money. It's that relationship with money and all that stuff. But also I still have really close connections with other people that have completely different business models. I used to think that I only needed to put myself around people that did their business the same way as me, but it limited how I thought about what I could do. Obviously I leveraged that, but have people that have different business models. And so when we're talking with each other about what's working and what's not working, then we're able to pull from each other and say, whoa, like that's unique. So one person was like, I don't only do webinars. I actually have a process where I give them exactly what they're looking for. It gives them so much value that they're looking for the next thing, but I give it to them, right? And then I take them through a training process where I'm helping them break their false beliefs. And if they feel like they want to now take action, I give them the option. And that option is to actually, talk with us on the phone. And because it's not a cheap program for pre-PTs, I know that it's easier to sell someone on something on the phone if we're able to talk about what's going on and able to really create a game plan. And so that was just from that process, just listening to people that I was watching, watching for belief, listening for what's already working, and then also putting myself around business owners that were crushing it, but also doing it differently so that I could figure out, like, are there other ideas out there that really allow us to not only bring people into our world, but also get clients, like a lot of clients on the back end for high ticket offers.
But Joseph, you could have easily been like, that's not possible for me. Right. Like, so let me just like, right. Because you can see, I've had this same thing where I was like, there's no way I can do that. And then I hung out with Paul Goff one day, and I was like, oh, I see exactly how I can do it, because he spoke my language, right? And because was there like a time, was there a moment where you were like, oh, this is the person, or this is the moment where I knew this was possible for Joseph, versus like it's not possible for, or because, you know, I'm asking because it may not be true this way, but this happens for a lot of people. They don't see the possibility, even though it's right in front of them.
Yeah, like our inability to see the possibility is basically because of how we've been trained, right? Like how we've been trained to think. And I think part of that's our upbringing, part of that's our, like our past experiences, right? So one of my biggest roadblocks was how I saw money. I always saw money as the bad thing, right? I saw that, if you were successful financially, you had to cheat the system. You were a scam artist. You were, doing things that were shady. And in order to be a good, helpful citizen to humanity, you needed to be broke, basically. Until I learned from a guy that was the opposite of those things, and that's Greg. Greg was my first kind of light bulb moment, and then I met you, and then I met Paul, and I was like, what? Like, these guys are amazing human beings. So they're clearly not trying to cheat some system. They just believe that the more people they serve, the more lives they're able to change. That actually equates to how much they're able to make. And it's okay for them to make a lot of money. Like, money is good. It's a tool that helps them not only buy their time back, not only, build beautiful lives for their families, but also help even more people. And so once I started seeing that and putting a face to people that I trusted, with yourself included, that was my first like indication that, like, I'm actually like, I'm lying to myself. I need to make sure that, like, if my goal is to really take care of as many people as possible, then I need to be willing to do that and do it in a way that really allows my family to be okay for even generations, right? But also for it to really generate a lot of impact, and that's perfectly fine. That's a beautiful thing. So that's where my light bulb kind of switched. But even today, I'll be honest. Like, I still read a lot of books. I still absorb a lot of content. I still listen to people that are doing things that, like, I think are impossible still, right? Because the more, what I realized is, and I don't know like how you feel about this, but what I realized is whatever we expose ourselves to more or enough times always makes sense.
Yeah.
Right. If I feel like something is impossible, it's because I've exposed myself to that thought, or maybe my community believes that, right? So whatever I'm exposed to more always makes sense. So my thing is, well, my goal is to help a ton of people. Okay. My goal is to also help my family have a lot of freedom, right? In terms of time, in terms of travel, in terms of so many other things. I want my family to have options that I never had as a kid growing up, right? And so, and I also want to show my family and my relatives and my siblings what's possible, right? If they just dream and they just go for it, I want to show them that. So to do that, though, I can't hold on to my previous thoughts of, money being bad or certain things being impossible. So I have to expose myself to people that are doing it, so that that becomes my norm, my normal way of thinking. And the more I do that, the more I'm able to just put myself out there, myself and Casey, and it's been beautiful. It's been awesome. Absolutely beautiful.
Well, it's like the way I hear you say. I know what you hear you saying, but it's the thing that triggers in my head is that what we're doing is we're normalizing what we want rather than normalizing things that we don't want, that are negative, that are harmful. Exactly. We're normalizing the good, but it's harder to focus on good things because we're wired to focus on bad things.
Exactly.
Right. So we have to go out of our way to put ourselves around people that are doing something we think is impossible, so it becomes normal. And then why am I not there? Why am I the only one in the room not making 7 figures living in Tahiti or $10 million, right?
But I mean, like, part of it too is when you start taking small steps, I think all of us at some point have to just take a step back and think of where we are now, and realize that your latest, biggest accomplishment you thought was impossible at some point. I mean, there was a time where I thought surviving high school was going to be impossible, but I was in 6th grade when I thought that, right? And so, but now looking back, high school is done, right? Like, high school doesn't seem like it was that crazy, right? And so you have to also look back. Like even for me, I have to look back at what we've done and use it as a sign that what I once thought was impossible, which we've already done, now I should use that to then still approach whatever I now see as impossible and say, no, it's only impossible because I haven't done it yet, but other people have. So if I could, like what you were saying, normalize it, then, when it does happen, it shouldn't be a big surprise.
That's awesome. What's your next impossible goal?
Wow. My next impossible goal, a 7-figure. Actually, that's too small. Let's just put it there. A 7-figure year just from like 7-figure year from the business.
Yeah.
Profit.
Right.
So
profit, not just gross, but like take home.
Doesn't mean much. Yeah. Profit. 7-figure year profit.
Yeah. Do you know how you're going to do that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, that's part of it too. You can't just dream it. You kind of have to, be able to say, okay, what's it going to take for me to do that? I know the amount of students that it's going to take. I know the process it's going to take. I know the numbers.
How many students does that require?
Students, to do it the way we're planning it, in 1 year, it would take 400 to 500 students.
Yeah. And how many students apply to PT school every year?
You're talking 20 to 30,000 people.
Yeah. So a small fraction.
It's such a small fraction. And that's what's crazy. Is like when you start thinking what that really looks like, you're like, what? This is nothing. And so, but that number that I just gave you is just from one stream within our business. And so it's so doable. So that's our goal for next year.
Yeah, that's awesome. So it's basically you take this goal, like, hey, I want $1 million in profit. That seems crazy, but if we work backwards and we're charging a fair amount, because a lot, if you're charging too little, it's going to seem even more impossible. But we work backwards. It's like we just need a couple hundred more people.
Yeah, it's not that bad.
So why is that goal so important to you? Like, what else is that going to allow you to do? What's that going to allow you to? How's that going to allow you to leverage your time and impact and everything?
So I think I'll still have my time. Really, why that number is special is just because, one, I thought it was impossible. Because I honestly don't think in terms of for myself, like I've already bought my time back. Like I have the time I need right now. My next big thing is my wife is a psychologist, so I want her to be able to, after this school year that she's in, I want her to be in a position where she doesn't have to go back to work. She has other dreams as well that we've been talking about, and that allows her to buy her time as well. And so really that's where my goal is, is to really just buy our time to the point where we can really, I also want to just enjoy the time that we have with our son. It's just, I grew up in I mean, my parents are phenomenal human beings. But because of when we came to the US, they had to work multiple jobs to the point where we couldn't spend as much time, at home, because they were making sure that my siblings and I were okay. Yeah. And so, looking back at that, not only am I grateful for it, but now I'm saying, okay, how can I make sure that I now have time for my kid, that I now create that for him or our future kids in the future? And so that's my biggest thing, but also because I think that number is I used to think it was impossible, but it also, but I flip it too. Like I look at the number in terms of what we'll receive, but I also think about what it does if we're able to help that 500 students get into PT school next year. Like, what is that doing for them? Like, that's part of it too for me. It's like changing that many lives is such a beautiful goal. And it's such a just feeling like every time I get a message from a student, saying they finally got into PT school, hearing them crying on the phone because of their story, and their stories are all over the place, and them having that moment of relief and feeling like, oh, like everything I worked for is actually real. Like they're pinching themselves because they're still not sure if this is a dream or if it's reality. And I'm like, 500 of those, I would love to help 500 people have that feeling. And so not only is it cool financially, but I mean, I would love to help even more than that.
Yeah.
But it's just one of those things where in your mind you're able to, like, I like numbers because then now you can work your way backwards and say, okay, what's that going to take? What's that going to take in terms of effort, in terms of putting ourselves out there? But on the back end, those are the things that really, really pump me up.
Yeah, dude, that's awesome. I got one more question for you.
That's right.
We get in my clinic every week, I'm looking for observation hours. I'm looking for observation hours. Can I get some observation hours? Can I get some observation hours? I need observation hours. You know, my clinic's not a typical clinic. It's really hard for me to give someone observation hours, especially with COVID. And there are a lot of people listening who may have an easier time doing that, but you can only do that with so many people at a time. Like, as a clinic owner, like what's the best way that I can serve these kids who like generally maybe don't even know they really want to go to PT? So that makes it even harder for me to say, yeah, I'm going to dedicate time to you. Like, how do we serve that request in the best way possible?
That's a really good question. You are the first clinic owner or physical therapist that's ever asked me that. And I think it's a great question. So first thing is just to realize that like your time is important, first of all, because I think sometimes we try to stretch ourselves thin as professionals because we're trying to make everybody happy. But I think the best way that, especially in that situation, that might be amazing is understanding that for them to be like, one, I would figure out a way to kind of filter the students that are coming in, right? So that, you know, like if they're coming in, like asking them, okay, like, you know, why are they coming in? How, like almost like a job interview, but you're doing it virtually where you're trying to figure out like how interested they are in learning a non-traditional way of going about everything, right? Because looking at things from the business owner standpoint is very different. How aware they are, like how much of a go-getter they are, because you're trying to kind of filter through, because when you don't have time, you also don't want students that are going to waste your time, right? But it also pre-frames them to come in knowing they're not just going to be pacified. They're coming in to be exposed. And so I've seen, you know, people go as far as, you know, suggesting readings like case studies, and then, you know, at the end of the week, you know, tell me what your biggest takeaway was. You know, I've seen it from the point of just watch what I do and then write down any question that you have, and then we'll talk about them at a certain period of time. But there's so many different ways to be creative, you know, with observation hours. It's also realizing that the idea of observation hours can be in so many different facets. Like the way we do it now is we do it through case studies. Like we're helping 1,700 students get their hours through case studies. Like I didn't even realize that was possible. But we researched it and realized like case studies, you just like show them like basically a case study of a patient that, you know, you're either currently treating or you have treated, you know, HIPAA and all that stuff, you know, being aware of that. But then like walking them through how you think as a physical therapist, because in person they can just watch. But I think that's probably the best way. There are, you know, like you don't have to just sit there with them and say, all right, what are your questions? No, like kind of pre-frame it, pre-set it up. The busier you are, the better your filtering system should be before they come in. I wouldn't let someone just walk in just because I've seen students when I was in the clinic that just kind of came dilly-daddling, but I had a conversation with them. I was like, listen, if you're going to be here, here's how to take advantage of it. Yeah. But if because we want to make sure that this is a win-win, like don't waste your time and my time. You know what I mean? So I hope that helps.
Yeah, dude, that is. How what's the case study program that you have? Is that something that like you could share the link with, and I could just say, hey, Amber, just if someone's looking for hours, like this is a great resource?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. It's observationhours.com.
No way. That's so awesome.
I was laughing because I was like, nobody's taken that yet. So yeah, it's observationhours.com. But if a student really needs hours and you know, you don't have the ability to, because like we said, the priority is the patients, the priority is the business. They're just kind of coming in to see your world. But if you feel like you can't, then that's fine. You know, observationhours.com is the perfect space.
All right. That's so dope. I'm going to give that to Amber so she can give that to people. And if you guys are listening, you get these requests, make sure you share that because that sounds awesome. Joseph, where do people find you if they want to connect with you, if they know a student that needs help or someone's listening, they need help getting in PT school, or they just want to figure out like, what are you and Casey doing that's like you're crushing it? Like, how do they get in touch with you and find more about you guys?
2 places. So actually lots of places, but the easiest way to find us is whatever social media platform they're on, we're also on. So just tell them to look up Pre-PT Grind on whatever that is. It could be TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, whatever. We're there. And then the second thing is our website, because our website just directs them well on what their next steps should be. So our website is just preptgrind.com. So preptgrind.com. Those are the best ways. But we're here to serve them in any way that we can. If their dream is to become a PT, then we're going to do our best to help them make that a reality.
Dude, that's awesome. Is there any question I didn't ask that you think would be helpful?
No, I think you crushed it. I think you nailed everything. But I think at the end of the day, it's just realizing that, one, this is kind of how I live my life. It's just understanding that, there's always there's always a solution for everything. Like whether we're trying to become business owners, if we're trying to figure things out, because I know everyone, your listeners are, either cash physical therapists, or they're trying to get into, into business, or, like so many different facets. Like there's always a solution. If you feel stuck, there's always a solution. And then two, it's understanding that, like people always have problems. And so your job is to spend time understanding their problems, like put yourself around them, just immerse yourself in their issues, and then take them on as your own. And if you can do that, then you'll always succeed in anything that you do.
Dude, that's so awesome. Like that's so great. Well, Joseph, thanks so much for being here on the show. I really appreciate you.
I appreciate you. This was amazing.
Yeah. All right. Well, this is the Cash PT Lunch Hour, and this is Aaron LeBauer and Joseph Ngugi just saying, go out there and crush your goals, set a high bar. And I think my big lesson from Joseph is pay it forward, and you're going to win in the end. So
always.
We'll see you guys on the next show. Thanks so much.